So today's video is going to be a little bit different than my usual videos because I actually went into my local tractor supply yesterday and I saw something that absolutely made me irate and very angry, and I really wanted to talk to you guys about it because what I saw was an absolute atrocity and an absolute crime against animals. And it upset me so much to see what they were doing there. And I feel a strong need to talk to all of you about it and tell practically the whole world about it and really ask directly to the people at Tractor Supply, what the heck are you guys thinking? How can you even defend yourself when it comes to what's going on in your stores right now? So like I said, I went into my local Tractor Supply yesterday. And I was going in there to get some literal tractor supplies, you know, like grease for my tractor. And as always happens every single year, I heard the peeping of their annual chick day. Now, I've never been personally a big fan of buying birds from Tractor Supply.
Now that's what I call a dead parrot. No, it's stunned.
But when I walked down the aisle and turned and looked to where the peeping was coming from, it was just awful. You know, Tractor Supply used to keep their chicks like in the like metal like cattle waterers. They'd have some wood shavings down, they'd have a brooder lamp going, and the birds would be peeping around doing their thing. I mean, they've basically always used the traditional way to brood a bird. But this year, they seem to have made a decision to change up their brooding setup. And as a general idea, trying to improve how you brood your birds is something you should always be striving for. But these new brooders that they have going right now are just absolutely awful. You see, what they've started to do is rather than use the heating lamps that you traditionally use when you're brooding your birds, they're using the heating plates, which personally I'm a really big fan of. There's a lot less fire risk. It's arguably better for the birds. It's a lot more like a mama bird's warmth. And so it's not that I don't understand how these heat plates work and why they're arguably a better way to brood your birds. My problem is with Tractor Supply specifically and how they are brooding the birds in their store. You see, I think in the name of saving floor space within their stores, as well as making it easier to grab the birds, and also simplifying their cleaning efforts, they've started to use these towers that are basically one brooder stacked on top of another with a heat plate in the middle, and they've got little feeding trays and water trays around the outer edges, and they've got these pieces of plexiglass with these slits cut in them for ventilation. And I gotta say, if I was drawing up a most efficient brooder possible and trying to think about how I would set something like that up, the design that Tractor Supply is using right now is pretty ingenious. I mean, it's space saving and it's mess saving. Like, they don't even need to use wood chips or straw for bedding. They just have these metal grates that are there that can let the bird's poop fall right through. But what I saw in the store yesterday was not what you would draw up on paper anywhere at any time. Like, clearly there was no sense of animal welfare involved, because when I looked at the birds at that Tractor Supply, they were in a very sad and sorry state. You see, they were listless, they were lethargic, they were huddled together in gigantic piles underneath the brooder plates. Some of them just laid there looking like they were near death. And when I went to find employees within the store to talk to them about the awful conditions and see if there was anything that they could do, they kind of just sort of shrugged their shoulders. You know, one employee who was willing to talk to me off the record and off camera said basically that this is just what the new corporate office is giving them, and they don't have any choice in the matter of what brooder they're using. And this one employee, he also told me that he has found a lot more dead chicks this year than in years past. Now, I know you guys might be saying right about now, hey Morgan, wait a minute, are you being fair here? Maybe there's just a problem at that one specific Tractor Supply store that you walked into. And I think that's a very fair point. But if you're willing to take a moment and venture online, you'll find that I'm not the only person with this grievance that's being aired about Tractor Supply's new brooding system. Just cruising through Tractor Supply's own Facebook page reveals complaint after complaint after complaint of people telling stories about sick and dying chicks, cold chicks, chicks in poor health, all attributed to this new brooding system that Tractor Supply has set up in their stores. Now I know lots of people don't quite understand what you're supposed to do or not do when it comes to brooding chicks and ducklings. And I also know that a lot of people out there don't even understand what's normal and not normal when it comes to brooding. But I don't consider myself one of those people. At this point, I've bred a couple hundred ducklings, goslings, and chicks. I know what's normal and I know what's not normal. And what I saw at my local Tractor Supply was not normal. And what I've seen in these social media posts from other people is not normal. There is something wrong and it needs to be fixed. In Tractor Supply, you folks are directly responsible for this one. On their Facebook page, Tractor Supply has actually tried to even address this one. And what they have given was a very stock, very rigid, corporate PR response. But in fairness to them, allow me to read a portion of it to you. As America's largest farm and ranch store, Tractor Supply always takes precautions to protect the health and welfare of the animals in our care. Then it goes blah, 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 blah. Lots about chick days, how their team members are trained to have proper care and do the right things. But then as you cruise down a little bit further in their statement, you'll see that they comment directly on the new brooders. And here's what they say. There are several questions in this thread about the new brooder towers. We developed the new brooder towers in partnership with hatcheries and a poultry veterinarian. All right, wait, let me just stop you for a second. While that's not necessarily a bad thing to do when you're developing a new brooder tower, I don't feel like working with hatcheries and a single veterinarian actually absolves you from any problems. Just a cursory glance at human history will show you lots of examples of smart, knowledgeable people doing terrible, awful things. The brooders use radiant heat, which heats the birds instead of heating the environment around the bird, unlike heat lamps and bulbs which heat the environment and not the bird. In a tower brooder, if chicks are huddled together, it's a good sign and the birds are warming together. Now I also gotta kind of call BS on that one as well. Yes, that is true about radiant heat. It does warm the bird. And yes, I've seen my own birds, generally speaking, get closer together when they want to sleep and be warm and huddle. It's much like the bird being underneath the mama bird and like giving them that warmth as well as the warmth from their brothers and sisters. But when you have a mama bird sitting on a nest, she might have somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 to like 12 birds sitting underneath her. If I look at these Tractor Supply brooders, there's oftentimes nearly as many as 50 birds inside one single brooder cell. That means that that pile of baby birds is a crushing hazard and you're likely gonna kill a couple of birds even if everybody else stays warm and at the appropriate temperature. And that, my friends, right there is the first flaw with this new brooding system that Tractor Supply has. The way their brooders are designed creates an increased risk of crushing death of the baby birds. But the second problem that exists with the Tractor Supply brooders is that they are setting these brooders up in every single store that they have across the country. And the environment from store to store can be slightly different. Some stores might be draftier than others. Some stores might be hotter than others. And while I'm sure that their brooder tower design worked perfectly in their test environments, when you start to think about the myriad of variables that are going to exist at a Tractor Supply, there are so many different things that could go wrong and shift the environmental temperature and create drafts and create other warming problems for those birds. You know, I think earlier this year, Tractor Supply also introduced a home version of these new brooders, so people could buy them and set them up at their own homes and brood their birds this way as well. And before Tractor Supply mysteriously stopped selling these brooders, my friend Chrissy over at the Paragon Ridge Ranch happened to pick up one of these brooders.
They are heavy.
And when I asked her how the brooder was doing for her, she said it was working pretty well, but she found that she had to do a little bit of finagling and tweaking to make sure that the temperature was the 93 degrees that she needed for her new baby chicks. And even as I started to do my own YouTube research, I found an example of somebody else who actually bought one of these brooders, and they had to cover the brooder with a blanket to get it to reach the appropriate temperature. So my point in all of this is that while they might work well in theory in a controlled environment, when you introduce these brooders to that variable nature that you can find in every single Tractor Supply across America, you're gonna find some very different circumstances, and that's gonna lead to very different performance. And that's gonna lead to a whole bunch of dead chicks and ducklings. And I know I usually try not to make these ranty type of videos for you guys, and I usually try to focus on the positive and tell a good story, but I feel like I am seeing something right now that's absolutely awful. And if I can't use this platform to bring more attention to it and bring more attention to the awful stuff that Tractor Supply is doing right now, I mean, what good is having a platform like this if I can't do something like that? Now, I can't make a video like this without disclosing a certain conflict of interest. Hey look, another goose egg. And that's to specifically state that yes, I do raise poultry here on our farm. Yes, we do sell hatching eggs. And yes, later this year, we are gonna sell live ducklings and live goslings for people to pick up on farm. But I am gonna have to ask you good people to trust me when I say that this is not about knocking off and ragging on the competition. This is about animal welfare and making sure that we're all doing the right thing. Look, I really care about animals here on our farm, and raising animals right is really important to me. And what we're seeing from Tractor Supply is not right at all. And look, I am actually a fan of Tractor Supply. Over the years, I've spent a lot of money there. In fact, this egg collection basket I'm using right now, I actually bought at Tractor Supply. And so to the people at Tractor Supply, if you're listening to me, reach out to me. I'd love to hear your side of the story other than some crummy social media posts that you put out there. But in my eyes, as the record stands right now, you guys are doing some awful things when it comes to animal welfare, and I really think you need to change. And I'm gonna personally be trying to do everything I can to impact your business and promote you to change, because I think what you're doing right now is wrong. For all my viewers, I gotta say, I've started a petition and I just wanted to put it out there. If you guys wouldn't mind taking a minute to sign it, just so we can try to get the attention of the Tractor Supply folks so that they can stop this awful practice, it'd really mean a lot to me. And so I'm gonna leave a link down in the video description for you guys if you wanna take action. Thanks.